On today's DNVR Broncos show, we're talking about which Broncos free agents will be back in Denver next year and which ones are walking out the door. We got a ton to break down, and it all starts now. Who walked out of the Broncos building for the last time this week? We're breaking it down on the DNVR Broncos podcast, live from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores. And of course, we're presented by Bet365. Use that code DNVR365 and deposit $10. Place a $5 bet and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets. And of course, we are the DNVR Broncos podcast with Super Bowl 50 champ Todd Davis, Henry Chisholm, you here behind the camera, and Zach Stevens rocking and rolling with you today. Fellas, how we doing?
Feeling good. Wednesday, halfway through the week, hump day. Come on.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go, baby. And today, the Broncos are having their end-of-season press conference at noon. We're going to break it down tomorrow with all the clips that you need to know everything about it. So kind of a big day for us as we'll hear Greg Penner maybe talk about the future location of the stadium. Will it be in Denver? Will it be in Lone Tree? We'll hear Sean Payton wrap up Bo Nix's first season. Then we'll also get to hear from George Paton, which will be good to hear from him. We haven't heard from him in months now. And George Paton may be having the best year of anyone over this past season. He is definitely trending up in the right direction. So big show for you tomorrow. But before we get there, guys, I want to talk about the Broncos' potential upcoming free agents, because there's a decent amount of them. There's some backups, there's some special teams players, there's some quarterbacks, and then there's also some big-time starters and role players on this team that I want to talk about. And before we do that, I just got a note from the company that we just dropped our first mock draft. And of course, mock draft, we've got an all-city NFL draft expert, Fran Duffy, who's been scouting college players all fall long. I believe when I talked to him last week, he said he's in-depth studied 150 players already. He's going to get to 250, if not 300 players by the time the draft comes around. And so it's really great to have his expertise. We're going to have actually Fran on the show every week, starting maybe even next week, as early as that. And so if you want to watch or check out this, make sure to go to thednvr.com, where he's got the Broncos pick in there. Or you can also click the link in our description for that. Can't believe it, guys. It's mock draft season, I guess, now that it's the off season.
Like, the season went by fast. Like, I remember week one, like, wondering what Bo's going to do this year, if he's going to start, and all those conversations we were having about the team to start the year, and then you look up and it's over. And it's just kind of how the season works, you know? And then after your football, you're like, you know, watch a little bit of basketball, and then you wait around again until football season starts. And that's kind of how your year works.
Is the season faster as a player or as a podcaster?
Faster as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because you're so busy.
Yeah,
like you have no time to come up for breath.
Yeah. Well.
What? No, that wasn't a pause moment.
No, I didn't say pause. Just so you know, when you have
paused.
Like
you literally paused.
Yeah, because you think about something, but
you do.
Okay, I see.
No, but yeah, you're just in a routine. You play on Sunday. Monday, you watch the film. You get one day of rest, and you're right back into it on Wednesday. So it's not really like you have time to sit there and look around, scrolling your phone. Like, you're literally rolling.
And I agree from an outside perspective, covering the team, that the season goes by way faster than the offseason. Because sometimes the NFL is great at giving us content to talk about. 10 months out of the year, if not 11 months out of the year. But still, there's a couple of slow days here and there where you got to find something. In the season, no. The shows, the content, the days just write themselves. Even though it is like 6 days a week that we're working, it just all goes so fast. So I'm not surprised that from a player's perspective, it's like that as well.
Yeah, it's quick, man. It's quick. If you can get to Christmas Day games, like, the season's basically over.
Yep. So
what finished strong.
Were you someone that was leaving on a plane Tuesday after the season was over? Were you taking a season-ending trip right away?
Yeah, for sure. There was a couple times where I actually booked it too close to when the season was over, and then had to move it because we still had exit meetings like 2 days after, and I booked it like the day after. So yeah, I was out every time.
You didn't just say like season's over. I don't need these exit meetings.
No, I tried to stay just to show keep good face and make sure that they wanted to try and bring you back next year. Yep. But the season usually ended like right on my wife's birthday anyway. Yep. So it's like we got to leave right now on the trip anyway.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Would some guys just say, "See ya, I'm not returning to the team. See ya, I'm not staying for these"?
No.
Okay, yeah,
no.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah,
you'd be burning some bridges.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
Henry, how you doing?
Oh, good. I don't really have any great stories. I tried to order Starbucks through the app this morning, and it said it'd be ready at 9:27, and then at 9:35, it still wasn't ready.
Wow.
But that's really the most exciting story
So
I have.
did you ditch it?
Crap.
No. Well, I had the sandwich. I usually grab a Celsius, but I get like the sandwich too, and you just kind of stand there, and you hope that they didn't forget. Because that's a weird thing when you order through the app. You don't actually talk to somebody and say like, "Hey, I'd like a sandwich." They just need to see it in their app, and the guy, I don't know, didn't seem super locked in.
So you didn't get food?
No, I did.
Oh, you did get food,
yes.
But no coffee.
No, just my Celsius.
Went to Starbucks without a coffee. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you got the sandwich?
Yeah.
So the sandwich was ready, and so you just dipped.
Yeah. Well, eventually it got ready. I was just standing there for like 10 minutes. This isn't worth the time we're
We're
giving
trying
it.
to get down to the bottom of
this
Henry's
isn't worth
breakfast
the time
sandwich
we're
story.
talking
And one more thing about becoming a diehard. Still $48 to become a diehard.
Really?
If you click on the link. Yeah, I guess we're extending that a little bit. At
Somebody
least that
forgot to take it down?
That was in the notes that I got. $48. So now's the time to get in. You still got to believe in the Broncos moving forward. So we're still celebrating the Broncos playoff week that they had last year. It's extending into this week, so make sure to check us out over at
and get it
DNVR.com.
right now, because there's a good chance somebody's watching the show right now and is like, "Wait, I was supposed to take this down and
Yep.
didn't do it."
It's very true. So right now, I was told it's still going. So join us, and you will get those mock drafts and all of our content as well, including the content that we're going to have from today's press conference. And you know what? Since we haven't dove into the main topic right now, news came out over the past week or so, with one piece of news dropping today that could impact the Broncos this coming season. Fellas, we're starting to find out who is going to be hosting international games this year. And one of those teams is the New York Jets, who will play in London this year. And another team that we found out this morning is the Indianapolis Colts. They're hosting the first ever regular season game in Berlin this year. How does that impact the Broncos? Well, Broncos have a road game against the Jets and a road game against the Colts, meaning they could be one of those two games. They won't get both of them, but they could get one of them. Todd, from a player's perspective, if you were on the team and under contract next year, would you be wanting to have one of those international games?
Only one.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to Berlin.
No, it would only London.
Yes, only London. Berlin, no. I don't know. No, it feels too cold. No.
I think isn't London higher than Berlin?
Yeah.
Here, can you look that up?
It is.
What would it be? Longitude, latitude?
That would be latitude.
When you think of London, what do you think of?
Well,
It just
are we
rains.
talking weather?
Just talking about
Gray.
the place.
Big Ben,
Yeah.
not Roethlisberger.
What do you think of when you think of Berlin?
Well, I've been to both, so it's tough. I gotta
The
say,
wall.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nothing positive.
I gotta say though, when I was in Berlin, I guess before I went, I kind of had that same feeling like, oh, this is not gonna be good. I loved it. It was
Really?
awesome. It was a really cool city.
Man, I just need to check it
Yeah.
out.
Munich,
But-
not as much, but Berlin, yeah.
But ultimately, yes, I think anytime you get to travel out the country, basically for free
Yep.
to play football,
Yes.
I'm down for it. And you get that
Or to do a
like,
podcast.
little bit of a week there. So if they get a game, will we go? If they get an international game, we'll go.
We went to London last time, so I'd
last
imagine
time
we'd
we
go
did.
this
Oh,
time.
hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, the nice thing for you get to do like the arcade thing from before, where it's just like do the podcast and hang out all day. Meanwhile, we were taking like an hour-long bus ride to practice and then watching practice for a couple hours, then doing media for an hour after and taking an hour-long bus ride back. And next thing you know, the day's over.
But you guys love it. That's
Oh
why
no,
you guys
it's
signed up for it.
it's awesome.
course,
But the whole
yeah.
time you're sitting there at practice thinking like, wow, those guys are at the big Ferris wheel thing spinning around and that, you know? So it is, you get a little FOMO. And it's still fun.
You made a mistake, but also it was a good thing. But it was a mistake in that way because you brought your girlfriend on the trip. So she was probably texting you pictures and everything of like, oh, look what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I just came solo, so it was just like all work. I had no FOMO,
Well, because
actually.
we also just got that big Airbnb, there we go, in London. And so it's like, well, there's room.
Yeah.
And so like a week before, she was like, well, it's $800 to fly out there and we've got a place to stay. Might as well do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we go. The thing about Germany is I would want to see all the World War II stuff. And I feel like that would be tough to get to when we only have like a few open hours a day. So I'd almost vote London a second time for me personally.
There's a lot in Berlin of that
Exactly.
stuff. I think you would love it.
I would
actually.
definitely love it.
Oh, but you saying you wouldn't be able to
Exactly.
get to it. I
So
see.
I'd almost, since I almost had like a half London trip last time,
Yeah.
I could kind of do the second half of the London
Wow,
trip.
and round it out.
This is all for me personally. But
All I know is we had an absolute blast as
It
well
was fun.
because what was it? Friday nights, all of Saturday and Saturday night, we had events where fans came out and
That
it was
was
just
awesome.
it was such a blast. Did a little boat trip
Yep.
with pretty much all you can drink. That got pretty
Yep.
fun.
Can't go wrong with that.
And the
You
one
had a
thing
night.
the biggest thing from that time in London, outside of like all the fun things we did, but from a Broncos perspective, was Russell Wilson saying he did high knees down the plane when the rest of his teammates were sleeping. That was probably the biggest piece of news. Broncos went out and won the game, but I think that's what that game and that week will I'll always be reminded of. So
Maybe they would have lost if he hadn't done it. Maybe he wouldn't have been limber enough.
it's such a good point. Yeah,
Yep.
maybe
It's a
if
long
Russ
plane ride.
It is, yeah.
that might have been the first thing that Sean Payton heard from Russ even before he became the head coach and was like, he's not my guy. If I take that job, he's out of here. So what do you think Bo Nix is going to say about his plane ride to either London or Berlin?
Well, if he does high knees, we will never hear about it.
It's true.
That's the one thing we know for sure. I think, so the thing is what? So there's 8 road games next year because they had 9
Correct.
this year.
Yep.
So if 2 of them could potentially be international, then there's
For
like
sure,
a,
only one will be.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there's like a 25% chance then if it's just totally random. But also with Damani Leach, the Broncos president, being the former vice president of international something for the NFL, growing
Yeah.
the game or whatever, I would imagine he's the kind of guy who would lean into that.
Yeah, for
Especially
sure.
for a road game. That seems like something Sean would like because you get to do your Greenbrier thing on the way out there. And for the owners, you get to make the Broncos, grow the Broncos brand internationally. Again, you're losing a road game, not a home game.
And that's actually something we might find out today, just how much of a push from the owners
Yeah.
with OB, because Pat Bowlen and Joe Ellis, they really wanted the Broncos to be an international brand. So actually, when Joe Ellis was running the Broncos as the de facto owner in his last couple of years, he begged the NFL to give him an international game. They were supposed to have one against the Falcons in London, but then COVID hit, so then it was postponed that next year, and then that's when we went to London. Broncos went to London, beat the Jags. And I agree with you, Henry. I would expect the new owners to have the same philosophy, but maybe that's something we'll find out today. And speaking of today, let's dive in to our topic today. And before we do that, I got to tell you about an awesome event that Verizon is putting on that you can participate in. And let me tell you about it, because how does this sound? Let me set the stage for the Verizon Fan Fest. You get to watch the Super Bowl this year inside Empower Field at Mile High, surrounded by NFL legends, including Broncos legend Emmanuel Sanders. And all you have to do to have that awesome experience is be a Verizon customer. If you're a Verizon customer, you get free access to this event. It's so cool. It's happening in all 30 NFL cities This season, it's going to be the biggest Super Bowl party that's ever happened. And all you have to do is be a Verizon customer. Plus, they're going to have Miles the Mascot, live music, upgraded eats from local Denver chefs, tour of the locker room. You get to try your hand at football challenges, lawn games, and more. And of course, watch the Super Bowl inside the stadium. That's probably the coolest place to watch the Super Bowl, would be inside an NFL stadium if you're not actually at the game. And game tickets are going to cost you about $5,000.
Yep.
All you have to do for this is become a Verizon customer. It's the largest simultaneous Super Bowl party ever, and it's free for all Verizon customers. Switch to Verizon at your local Verizon store to grab tickets and get all of the details at VerizonFanFest.com.
Also, shout out to Every Plate. Every Plate is awesome because, I think during football season, that's probably like my least healthy time of the year because it's so easy to be like, well, I've got things to do today. I'm not going to make it to the gym, or I have to go get fast food because I don't have time to actually make something or find something that's healthy. Every Plate can solve a bunch of those problems. So they help you dish up better habits with delicious, easy recipes. They deliver everything to your door. They include the new Calorie Smart, Carb Smart, and Protein Smart options, so you can pick whatever you're interested in, whatever your goals are. With their new Smart Swap recipes, you can swap flour tortillas for lettuce wraps, or white rice for lettuce, or potatoes for sweet potatoes. Just a whole bunch of ways that can help you if you're trying to be healthier. Take their healthy recipes and take them to another level. So skip the store, enjoy wholesome homemade meals that cost less than groceries, and set wholesome habits this year when you sign up for America's Best Value Meal Kit. You can get started with 50% off your first box and a free month at Planet Fitness as well with the code DNVRPF at everyplate.com/podcast. Every Plate offer valid with auto-renewing subscription. Planet Fitness offer valid with $1 down at Black Card membership sign-up. Additional restrictions apply. See everyplate.com/podcast for details. That's 50% off your first box and 1 month free at Planet Fitness with code DNVRPF at everyplate.com/podcast.
And shout out to our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Use that code DNVR365 when you sign up. All right. There you go.
Yeah, no, I read the whole thing. I read the whole thing.
Okay, let's dive in to today's topic. Which free agents will be back, which will not be back and have played their final down for the Broncos? And let's start with two guys that were starters this year. Let's start with DJ Jones, the big man in the middle of the Broncos defensive line. He just finished his 3-year, $30 million contract with the Broncos, played the whole thing out, and the Broncos did not sign him to an extension this past season. Todd, do you think DJ has played his last down with the Broncos, or will he be back?
This is like a two-part question because one, I think, does he deserve to be back? Absolutely. Two, do I think he'll be back if he takes less money?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if they'll give him the same 3 years, $30 million. I think it will have to be something a little cheaper and a little bit shorter term, maybe like a 1-year deal. But ultimately, I'm unsure about his, future with the Broncos. Not because he's not a good player, but we have a lot of talent at that position, and sometimes it's easier to keep the cheaper guys, even if you're losing, 1 or 2 good plays a game. It's a lot. $10 million cheaper, you're like, it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, this is by far the toughest decision, and it's really the only, I'd say, kind of major decision. Anything else is, I don't want to say like Cody Barton or backup quarterback isn't important, but the Broncos are lucky they're not losing a bunch of guys this year, and it'd be really easy to keep everybody together if they're willing to just pay DJ. If I had to bet, I'd say he's not on the team, because it's hard when next year you're going to have to pay Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, and Malcolm Roach, and all 3 of those guys are going to cost more. It's tough to say exactly how much more or any of that. But if you sign DJ Jones, say it is another 3-year, $30 million contract, that's already on the books when you have to make those decisions next year. And you don't want to be in a situation where you say, hey, we're going to wind up with a 31-year-old instead of Malcolm Roach, who took a step this year. It just kind of hamstrings you a bit. The other tough part, he played 40% of the defensive snaps this year. Like, as a nose tackle, that is kind of a rotational piece. And it's why DJ Jones, being one of the best nose tackles in the NFL, only was making $10 million a year. Because you talk to Zach Allen, and he says, like, DJ may not be the one going out there and getting the sacks, but we don't have 63 sacks without him. because he's the guy on first and second down who's making plays in the backfield or just stuffing guys at the line of scrimmage so that they're in 3rd and 8 so that we get a chance to pressure. So to me, it's really hard to just get rid of the guy who makes your strength of your team your strength. Like, having an overwhelming defensive front is why the Broncos overachieved this year, and just ditching a piece of that is scary. I'd probably bring him back. I don't think the Broncos will, though. Yeah, again, unless he takes a pay cut.
Yeah, and I'm curious what the price tag is going to be, and I think that's what it's all going to boil down to with this. And I think there's going to be other players where we're not saying that. We're saying, nope, Broncos have no interest in bringing this guy back. I think the Broncos do have interest. I'm reminded to this day last year, when George Paton pointed directly to run defense is what they had to improve in the offseason. He was very direct about it. He said the number one thing we need to do, outside of getting a quarterback and solving the quarterback issue, is focus on getting our run defense better. What did they do? They went out and got John Franklin Meyer. They went out and got one of the best defensive tackles in terms of stopping the run, and Malcolm Roach, and boy, did they do that. They went from a team was historically bad against stopping the run for a 4 or 5 game stretch 2 seasons ago to their top 5 in every single metric against the run in terms of yards per carry, touchdowns given up. They were a great run team. Now, it's tough to say that, 3 days after they gave up 200 yards on the ground, but that was a bad game. It was a really bad game. But overall, this team was great against the run. And I don't know how you let a big piece of that go right there. But I think the Broncos will spend money on that position. I just don't know if it's going to be DJ. And I do think that they're going to take a look at other free agents that are out there and see if it's better to spend money on DJ or other guys. So I think they spend money there. I just don't know if it's DJ, because everything he did over this past 3 years, I think he can command $10 million. Now, maybe it's a 1-year deal for $10 million. Maybe it's a 2-year deal for $18 million. And the Broncos do have to make decisions about who they want to pay on that front. Of course, you have to pay Zach Allen, and he's young enough where you can give him a 3rd contract technically in a couple of years. John Franklin Myers, he's also going to be 30 years old by the time you give him another contract, if that happens in 2025. So this is a really tough one. But I do. My answer today would be the Broncos do spend money at that position. I just don't know if it's DJ.
So my question to you guys would be, would them bringing in 2 other D tackles to quote unquote stop the run or stop the issues that the defense had being able to stop the run, would that lean more to saying that the guys that they brought in was a bigger piece to stopping the run than DJ was?
Yeah. And then you can also look, and this isn't fair to DJ, but what they might do is they would say, well, 2 years ago we had DJ, and we had a historically bad stretch for 5 games where we gave up the most rushing yards that the franchise has ever given up in a 4 or 5 game stretch. And then we also had DJ last year when it was good, but he's been there the whole time when it was good, when it was bad. I think they would point to Sean's guys that Sean brought in, especially Malcolm Roach.
If I was his agent, then I would say, well, you took him from San Francisco, where they play that one gapping attack, like you're a penetrating defensive line. You put him in a defensive line that doesn't penetrate, and then this year you went back to saying attack your gap, and look what happened.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have him right back. You asked him to do what he's best at, and all of a sudden he's playing some of the best football of his career. It is tough, though. I think the other piece that goes into this is eventually you need to be a team that's getting comp picks. Like that's the way good teams stay good. Like the 49ers, they lose so many guys, they develop so many coaches. They're going to wind up with 13 draft picks this year, which is an insane number. And so you can draft a bunch of guys, you can trade them and move up. But to get comp picks, you need to lose more free agents than you bring in. So if that means you sign DJ Jones, give him his contract, you focus on bringing everybody back, maybe only bring a couple guys in. Like, it's probably too soon to be able to work those numbers in those ways. But the idea of losing DJ and signing 2 guys, all of a sudden that flips the math a little bit away from you.
But you also
it's probably too soon.
You also don't want to let good players go just to get comp picks. Like, I think that's something you figure out way after the fact.
Yeah. No, I mean, typically that's teams. I mean, DJ Jones being an example from the 49ers, who you just have so many good players, you can't afford to pay them all.
Yeah, Mike McGlinchey.
Exactly. And the Broncos just aren't in that place yet. And as much as it sucked to lose, like, Danny Trevathan had to walk, or Malik Jackson had to walk, before Julius Thomas had to walk. It's like you just have to make some of those tough decisions. And, you decide, well, you get Derek Wolfe or Malik Jackson. Because of that, you get those comp picks. And that's why those good teams stay good. And the Broncos probably aren't there yet. And it probably does go back to if you have good players, you're just not in a position where you should be letting good players go right now. Unless there's a clear, obvious option in terms of free agents. But I don't see anybody. Like BJ Hill, Greg Gaines, Sebastian Joseph is decent. Like, they are professional scouts who pay a lot more attention to nose tackles and who's playing better than I am. But I think you bring DJ back and figure out the numbers next year with everybody else.
And I think the Broncos might say, and Henry, I agree with everything you said, but I think the Broncos might say, we went bargain shopping last year for this position, and we found two guys. If DJ wants $10, $12 million a year, we're just going to do the exact same thing that we did last year. We're going to go bargain shopping. So right now, I would say he's not back. Also, we talked to him in the locker room on Monday, and he only said good things about the Broncos. He said, it'd be great to be back, but he did not go full Garrett Bowles, saying like, oh, I've told the team that I'd love to be back. I'll do anything to be back. The ball's in their court. No, he did not give the Broncos all of the leverage with this. So right now, I'd say just slightly leading that he won't be back, but wouldn't be surprised if he's back. And obviously, I think it would be good for the defense if he's back.
Yep. I think some people are saying let Malcolm Roach take that job. It's like, that would be great. Like, he is deserving of a starting spot, but you need 5 guys to play those 3 spots over the course of a game. And so you obviously have Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers, who are kind of the key guys, but then you had DJ played 40% of the snaps, Malcolm played 42% of the snaps, then Jordan Jackson played 27% of the snaps, and everybody else kind of figured it out down there. If you bump Malcolm Roach into DJ Jones' starting job, you need to find somebody to be Malcolm Roach next year, which they were able to obviously do last year. That's a lot harder to do than I think people give it credit for, to find a defensive tackle for $2.5 million who can come in and be that productive. And you can make the case that maybe you want to even upgrade the 5th spot with Jordan Jackson. Maybe that's just Uzurike improving or Matt Hennings in, but you're going to need to add more pieces regardless.
I think so. But I think in the Broncos' mind, I haven't talked to anybody over there, but it's one piece that you could draft. You can find somebody cheap, or you could promote from within. And outside of that, I've always felt like you need a good team to have a good defense or like good play, but you don't need 11 great players.
Yeah.
You need, on the field, you need like 9 or 10 really solid players and 2 guys that you can kind of hide sometimes. Because if you had 11 great players, like you're gonna be paying a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think that's how defenses work. So if we do lose DJ Jones and have to have Roach fill in, I think 42% of the snaps will be perfect. There may be 20% in there where we're like, all right, let's move him away from where they're running the ball, whoever we bring in, and we'll find a way to live with it.
Yeah. And a draft pick makes sense, because that's the other piece that it felt for a long time like the Broncos just needed to draft a tight end or a running back in the first round. That's not necessarily the way the draft always works, though. You kind of want to take whoever's valuable, and having maybe not a hole in the roster, but the opportunity to, in the first round, in a deep defensive line class, say like, this guy's on the board, let's take him, without feeling like you're totally blocking him. There is some value in that.
Yeah, and Broncos have to go offense in the first round this year. They got to go skill position player. Maybe if it's a deep class, so there's someone in the second there waiting for you. The Broncos finally have a second-round pick this year. Let's move on to one other guy who was a starter this year before we get into some role players, after we give a shout-out to our friends over at Bet365, where if you want to get in on action, they're probably going to have free agent action too. They're probably going to put up lines for where's this guy going? Does he stay? Does he leave? Because they're all about being never ordinary. So they just have so many different types of bets that you can place over at Bet365. And if you want to get in on the action of free agency, draft lines will be up soon if they're not already up. I think they already are up. And of course, NBA, NHL, NFL playoffs. If you're still going to watch this weekend, I know I'm going to be dialed in, even though the Broncos won't be in. There's some close lines. If you like the Commanders to cover 9.5, you can get that over at Bet365. Download the app or scan the QR code on the screen to download the app. Use the code DNVR365 when you sign up to get $150 in bonus bets. When you deposit $10 and you place a $5 bet, you can use those bonus bets on anything, and it's guaranteed that you'll get those. So make sure to check out Bet365 because now through January 20th, Bet365 is giving new customers $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that $5 bet. Sign up, use code DNVR, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, once help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
And shout out to our friends over at Shady Rays. You guys know that we get a lot of sun here, and whether it's snow on the ground or whether it is nice and clear, the sun is usually out. And you can get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. I never trust anything that has like 10 people that said it was 5 stars or 7 people, but 300,000 people, you can trust that many people to, point you in the right direction. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them perfect for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DNVR for 30% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars, but over 300,000 people.
And again, shout out to our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Use that code DNVR365 when you sign up. Let's dive into another Broncos starter who's a free agent, Javonte Williams. We all know his story, and now he is a free agent. Henry, will Javonte be back, or has he played his last down with the Broncos?
No, he won't be back. I think that's been pretty obvious for a while. I will say, I think there's a world in which the Broncos let him walk and regret it. I think there's a chance he goes to another team and he finally does kind of get back to being himself, but it's not likely enough to bring him back. And that room is just built in, like it's a well-built room. Like you have Estimate, you have Jalil, you have Bidet, and you're kind of you have Blake Watson, and you're just kind of needing a guy at the top, or maybe even 2 guys at the top if the opportunity presents itself in the draft. So I don't think you bring Javonte back just because it jumbles things. And you'd love to have him. Like, you would love to have him compete in camp and see if he's back, but that's just not the way the world works. You have to make the decision now, and the decision now is a pretty easy one.
What did Javonte's role become in the latter half of the season?
Third down back, finished 5th in the NFL in receptions for running backs.
He was the Samaje Perine of this Broncos backfield. And what did the Broncos do with Samaje last year? They kept him, and then they dumped him right before training camp. Not even Samaje Perine could hang with the Samaje Perine role in Denver, so I don't think Javonte is going to be hanging here. Henry, just like the Broncos dumping Samaje, he went to the Chiefs and made a couple plays on them and is a role player for them. I could see Javonte doing the exact same thing. I don't think Javonte's done in this league, but the Broncos need a true number one, and they were hoping that could be Javonte, and it wasn't. So I think they move on from him in order to bring a true number one in. So, yeah, I think he's done.
Yeah, I feel like this is the position where they're going to make a big splash this year, whether it's in the draft or free agency. They're looking for their all-pro, Pro Bowl number one, like you said. So don't know who it's going to be right now, but I think Jalil could have been the guy, but for whatever reason, they don't believe in him. Like, I think you can see from how they don't necessarily dial plays up for him or give him a steady dose of carries. All year, they've done I guess you want to call it a good job of having multiple guys get multiple carries. You never know who's going to get 7 or 8 carries in any game. You think Estimate's coming along. Then the last game, they sit him for Bidet.
Yep.
You just don't know what's going on with that running back room, and I think it's because they feel like they don't have a true number one to come in there and take the spot and take a majority of the roles and have somebody come in there and sub on third down or every once in a while. So I think they go get their number one, and I think a couple of the guys that we have right now will probably part ways with. So maybe we keep 2 guys that we have right now and then go get our number 1 and see how it works out for us.
Yeah, and Javonte's kind of clogged that room up too. Because in hindsight, knowing Javonte never really found a rhythm until maybe those last 2 games where he at least was functional, I think it would have been nice to be able to see what happens when you give Jaleel and Audric, and even maybe Blake Watson, who got a couple carries at one point, or Tyler Bidet, just give them more runs so that you know what you have.
But you know what you have. That's why they're not getting more runs.
Probably.
Nobody's stopping Sean from putting anybody in. If there's somebody you really felt like was the guy, he just needed more opportunity, I think Sean would have given it to him. But they haven't done that. So that tells me they don't feel like they have their number 1 on this roster.
I think they definitely don't feel like that. But also, if Javonte just wasn't on the team week 1, you would have seen Jaleel get a more extended run. You would have seen Audric get a more extended run. Because I think at points Jaleel has looked good, but you certainly haven't seen enough to say like, yo, let's go with him into next season. I think there's a world in which they build enough around him that he does pop, or Audric pops, or Blake pop. But just because you never... I feel like I still want to see more from those guys before I know what they are.
But they're not giving them more.
Exactly.
You've had games where Javonte got 0 carries. It didn't mean that any one back was just the perennial guy now, and we're going to give him all the carries. It just means Javonte got 0, so we're going to give 6 to Estimate, 6 to Jaleel, and if Bidet was healthy, we'll give him another 3.
Yep.
It never felt like they were giving anybody a real shot to be the guy.
I agree. And that's why I'm not ready to say Audric won't be a starter in the NFL. And there's a part of me that wishes I had seen him just get more run this season so I could have a better gauge of where he is right now. But instead, I feel like there's just a guy maybe with a little bit of potential who didn't quite put it together. And because of that, it just feels like there's a massive hole. I don't know. More information on all of those guys would just make things a little bit easier.
I think we didn't get enough information because of what Todd was saying. That Sean saw enough in practice, in the meeting rooms, and said, that these guys aren't it. And I think Sean, people got so mad at Sean for why can't you play 3 running backs in a game? Because he would always say it's hard to get 3 guys the ball, or why aren't you putting this guy in? Why are you benching Audric Estime? I think that told us with his actions everything we need to know. He doesn't trust anyone in this running back room. And the fact that he's bouncing from Javonte to Jaleel getting starts, and then you're benching Audric Estime just as it seemed like, man, this is a perfect game for Estime to break out, just tells me that, if he could move on from all of these guys to get one stud, he would do it in a heartbeat. So I think Sean's actions seemed really confusing throughout the season, and I think it's because he doesn't trust any of these guys and needs a big replacement here.
Yeah, I don't think his actions were too confusing. I think the only guy who got a fair shake was Javonte, and I think that's reasonable to me. I think that Javonte deserved all the opportunities he got throughout the year.
Even if they got 113 rushing attempts. That's a pretty good opportunity.
It's solid. And what did he do with it?
4.4 yards per carry.
It's not bad. That's a decent number.
It's not bad at all.
Exactly.
So what are you saying? I thought you said you needed more.
Well, that's
why. To see more from him.
Because I think that he could be a starter in the NFL.
They're not treating him like a starter.
I agree. And that's why I can't say for sure. I just think there's a chance that that's the way things shake out, but we never saw. It just didn't feel like we saw him get a 3-game run where it's there it goes, because he 4.4 yards per carry.
What we're talking about is we think that these guys are talented, but we're also saying how the Broncos view them. So from this season, we've seen how the Broncos view them by how they chose to play them. So yes, we feel like we could see more of Jaleel, but do we feel like the Broncos are going to put him in a position to be the number 1 back? No. And I think with Sean Payton, if you look at when he has a guy, whether it's Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, he doesn't give everybody 6 touches a game. That's not how he runs his offense. So I think he used this year to test the waters a little bit, found out what it was, let everybody get a couple carries. But I ultimately think he wants to have one guy that takes 15 carries a game and has another guy that kind of runs screens and can get open and make moves. And I don't think he feels like he has that right now.
And I agree. I just think, again, if Javonte wasn't here, at the very least, I think you want a thunder guy and a lightning guy. That's what we've seen from Sean, is that you have the receiving back and the power back. I'm not ready to say that either one of those guys are going to be incredible in that role, whether it's Audric as the power guy or Jaleel is the speed guy, which puts them in a bit of a tough place. because either one of those guys I could see not having a spot in the NFL next year, or again having 150 touches. So I just feel like there's a lack of information at that room because they force-fed Javonte even when things weren't going well. And I don't think that was the wrong thing to do, but it just leaves me wondering what exactly you have there. Like, which one of those two guys do you take out of the competition? Do you go after a Najee Harris to be your power guy, or do you go after Aaron Jones to be your receiving back guy? Because it's just tough to say where exactly those guys stand.
Or you go after a back that can do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to a Genty in the draft. You have a big
Two
splash.
mock drafts today have Broncos getting Genty.
There you go. So that's what you do. Get a guy that can do it all. And really quick to put a bow on this, running backs, you typically, if they can play right away or not. The very first day of training camp when Philip Lindsay was there, I think it was Brandon Marshall, said oh my gosh, this guy can play. He's definitely making the team. He was an undrafted running back, and after the very first day of training camp, you have a linebacker who's going up against him saying that about him. And then also in seasons, did you guys know that Jahmyr Gibbs was a damn good back after his rookie season? Yeah, Bijan Robinson, yeah. You know these guys are good or not. So you don't need a multi-year sample size, I think, from a coach. And the final thing, do you remember Jordan Sunshine Taylor, your teammate, Todd? He would always make the highlight plays of training camp. And I remember asking a veteran reporter, my first or second year on the beat, this guy, he just keeps making plays. Why didn't we see him last year? Well, there's a reason you don't see him, because he's not doing something behind the scenes that the coaches, it's not like coaches.
Or there's another guy, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like coaches are sitting great players.
Unless they have a guy.
And most of the
was
time,
JT undrafted?
Yeah.
That can happen.
But Todd, you
You
were
just
undrafted,
never get a chance.
and you did get a chance, and
Yeah,
you took advantage
I had to
of
beat
that.
up some coaches to get no.
Yeah.
No, but I've definitely seen that happen though. But I don't think that's what's happening now.
How did you get your chance? It was Brandon got hurt, right?
It was my first start. Was it Danny? One of them. One of the linebackers got hurt.
Yeah. But that's how it goes, is it's always kind of fluky when you're one of those late round guys that you actually get an opportunity. Because a lot of those guys just never get an opportunity. Like JL Skinner, there's a very good chance he'll just never get an opportunity to show he can play. You know?
He was a
7th rounder.
He was a draft pick. No,
Yeah.
he wasn't a 7th rounder.
But the reason why he's not getting a chance, you have to put yourself in a position to get a chance. So when PJ goes down this year, if you are working your butt off and balling like you need to, you're the guy who steps in.
Yeah, exactly.
And because he didn't get the opportunity, that means he's maybe not one step behind PJ. He might be two.
Yep.
So I think there's other reasons why he could not be getting this shot.
Yeah,
too.
but
I don't know if we're giving your argument. More
Exactly.
my
That's
argument,
the thing, though. It's just that,
we're talking.
if you want to get a chance, it means that somebody else either blew their chance or they got hurt. You can get yourself in line, but
with running backs, I just gave an example of how Philip Lindsay didn't wait for someone to get hurt 6 weeks into the season. Yes, he was undrafted. The very first day of training camp, starters on the team were saying, this guy's making the team.
Yeah.
And then by the time the season started, he was the starter. He was the main guy. And that is the same position we're talking about here.
It happens.
And we're talking about Audric Esme, who was a 5th-round pick. We're talking about Jaleel, who was undrafted but has now established himself. These guys aren't still waiting to show that they've got it. I really like Audric. I think he can provide something for this team. But how many times did we get hints from Sean that he is not running the way Sean wants him to? He's not following Sean's instructions. He's being the Barry Sanders when Sean wants him to be the Jerome Bettis. Sean made that very clear
in September.
And then also he fumbled. He jumped over someone and fumbled. Barry Sanders, not the Jerome Bettis. And then you want to look at something more recent. Everyone thought this past game in Buffalo was a prime example to use him. And he didn't even get a jersey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
but maybe if he did play, then who knows what he would have done? Again, 4 yards over
the
4 yards per
coaches
carry.
made this
The only
decision.
person,
Coaches can be
the
wrong,
only person
though.
I feel like is talented enough to be a starter in the NFL, in my opinion, right now is Jaleel, and I think that he's getting. Maybe I'm saying have a little bit of bias, but he's getting that undrafted free agent treatment.
I agree.
There's no reason why he shouldn't have got more touches. There's no reason why he shouldn't have been the starter.
I agree.
Based off what he did last year, based off what he did early in the season, he should have been the starter. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he's getting done a little bit like Philip Lindsay did. There's no reason why Philip Lindsay shouldn't have been re-signed as a Bronco and getting paid good money. He was running behind an O-line that is much worse than the O-line we have right now.
Totally.
And nobody still has had 1,000 yards.
Yep.
That baffles me to this day. Shout out to Phil. There's no reason why he shouldn't have had a 10-year career and played 7 years with the Broncos.
Yep.
He was doing everything you needed him to do. He ran between the tackle, but he's not, quote unquote, big enough or physical enough. But they can't tackle him, and he's getting yards. So what are you writing down on a piece of paper, or what measurables do you need to see to tell you that this guy is good enough when the film shows you when he's out there, it's a mismatch?
Exactly. And that's why, again, this season was about seeing what Javonte could do. And that meant that even with his struggles, he was still in rotation. If Jaleel or Audric had put up the numbers Javonte did or ran the way he did in the first half of the season, they'd be out of rotation immediately. But again, because Javonte was the one guy they felt like they had to keep giving chances to, that's why I feel like I wish I had seen more Jaleel. I wish I had seen more Audric just so that I could.
They didn't feel like they had to do nothing. I'll tell you
don't think
that.
so?
No.
Okay.
So that's where I feel like maybe we disagree. I don't feel
Then
like
why
they
was he
felt like
still in
anything.
there?
He wasn't really in there. You're talking about how the first half of the season he was in there. He was. Here are the second half games. Here are the carries he got. 1, 9, 8, 4, 6, 4, 0,
It's not a lot of
5,
carries.
It's
7.
not a lot,
That
but
is
how often
not
did
a lot.
anybody
Nothing.
get
That
10
is
carries?
not.
But that's the problem. It wasn't that anybody was getting a lot of carries. It was that they were sharing the rock so much.
Second half of the season, Jaleel, 8, 5, 2, 4, 7, 14, 7, 10, 16, 2. He had more double-digit carries than Javonte. So, I mean,
Javonte played more snaps this year than he has in any season of his career.
For sure.
Like, he
That's
was out
fine.
there a lot. Like, on those third
You're
downs,
saying
get
Jaleel
Jaleel
didn't
in
get an
there.
But who did
Third
you-
downs, get
Jaleel had
Jaleel
a
in there.
bigger-
Get
bigger-
Audric
But
in
who
there.
did you
Jaleel
want
had a
in
bigger
there?
opportunity
The
second half.
thing about
Occasionally.
Audric is when Javonte wasn't running well, even Noshan was saying there has to be something wrong with Audric because there's no reason why you don't give him burn.
I agree.
It wasn't about they felt like they needed to keep putting Javonte
Then why was
in.
he still on the field at the end of the
Because
season?
when Estimate came in, he wasn't doing his job.
Then
He
give it to
wasn't-
Audric. Or sorry, give it to Jaleel.
They
give
gave
it to Blake
some
Watson.
to Jaleel.
They
Give
gave
it to
him a
but
bigger
at the-
run
but
than
at the
anyone
end
the
of-
second half
bigger.
of the season.
At the end of the day, Jaleel and Javonte were still their two best running backs.
You still think so?
Absolutely. It wasn't about seeing what anybody else could do or Blake Watson throwing him into the mix. Their two best running backs the entire season were Jaleel and Javonte. When Jaleel wasn't running well, they tried to give Audric burn, and he didn't do what he needed to with that opportunity. It wasn't about them needing to see more. Sometimes you only have a game. Sometimes you only have 10 reps. And then obviously he's not doing what he needed to do. Was there a game the entire season where Estimate went off? No. He had one okay game.
But then you get to the end of the year and Javonte had 3.7 yards per carry and Audric had 4.1. Like again, like
He was
and
getting
that's
very
just-
limited carries, though.
And most of them are 3rd and 1, just plow straight ahead and get us a yard and a half, and he still gets the yards per carry.
The thing about it is, I don't know what the issue is, but if you don't know the playbook, I can't put you in. If you
Yeah.
can't protect, I can't put you in. Doesn't matter if you're getting
so
4
where
yards
does he
a carry.
stand now, though?
He stands 4th right now. He was out the last game.
So go.
They
definitely,
decided
yes,
not
yes.
to play him.
That's fair. That's fair. So,
But
so
they
you're
just
just
can't.
you're
was
writing
come
him
back
off.
from injury.
You're writing
I'm
him
not
off.
writing him off. The Broncos already
See,
wrote
yeah,
him off
that's what I'm
before.
saying. The
The
Broncos wrote him
Broncos
off,
are
and
writing
I'm not
him
ready
off.
to write him off.
Well,
But we're talking
Sean
about-
sees him every single day and
Yeah.
decided
Yeah.
to make the decision and say, "Hey,
Sean can be wrong.
He's going to be 4th.
Sean can be wrong.
He's got this team to the playoffs in 2 years. I'm not calling him wrong.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, it's rare, but he can be.
Henry, though, Sean can be wrong, but he's the one making the decision. So it doesn't matter if
Exactly.
he's wrong or not. If he views himself as right, that's all that matters. He's the one making the decision.
So you would say you just go into next season like you don't even have Audric. Like this backfield's basically just Jaleel, and then you kind of build around that. So you're looking for a power guy. You're looking for a third who kind of fits
Sean
together.
the camp.
Sean views this, in my opinion, as the Broncos need a running back, like the running back, and they need to go. And then Audric can be a complementary
For sure.
power back, and Jaleel can be a complementary speed back.
Yes.
But neither of those guys are going to be the guy, not even the power back or the speed back. They're going to have a 1, and they're going to use a first-round pick on him, or they're going to trade a lot for him, or they're going to spend a lot of money on him. That's how I think Sean views
So
it.
All I'm saying
we
is
drafted Audric, so he's coming to camp next year.
Yes,
he is.
yes.
So if he just has a great offseason, gets in really great shape, understand his playbook, there's going to be a role for him here. Is there an opportunity right now for him to be the one? I would say no. They're going to go find that guy. But ultimately, they're going to give him a shot to play an important role in this offense.
All I said is I just wish that I had been able to see more of those two.
I thought you said you went to practice every day.
I did. And what did they do? They jog through that little thing that hits them while they hold on to the ball. Like I just wanted to see more. I wanted to see what would happen if you give them more carries. Because I think that there's still a lot of potential in both those guys. And I just feel like
This is what you were saying about
I
Greg
didn't
Dulcich.
learn much about him.
Alberto.
I didn't. No, I didn't. I hated Alberto.
Wow. Okay, I love the discussion. We got to move on because we've got a lot more players to talk about. And before we move on, if you want to be in the stands next year, you got to check out our friends over at Game Time, where there's no better place to get your tickets, whether it's for NFL games this upcoming season, college games, got college basketball on too. If you're going to head up to Boulder, check out Game Time, NBA, NHL, concerts, anything that sells tickets, Game Time has you covered there. And we love Game Time, not only because you're going to get $20 off by using the code DNVR on your first purchase, but look at this interface that they have. It is awesome. You get to see where seats are. You get to see the view from your seats for any venue, so you know exactly what tickets you're buying. You're not going to buy a ticket that's behind a pole and be shocked by that. You're going to know going in exactly what your seat looks like. They've got the Game Time guarantee. They have so many benefits of using Game Time. And again, if you use the code DNVR, you're going to get $20 off over at Game Time. Download the app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the app. Use that code DNVR. Terms apply. Create an account. Use that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed.
Also, if you want to watch us, you don't just have to do it on YouTube. You can do it on all sorts of different places, like channel 2348 of Samsung TV Plus, channel 4072 of Xfinity on Xumo Play and more platforms. Also, apparently you can just say DNVR Sports into your remote and search for DNVR.
That's dope.
So check it out. And we want to see the DNVR channel TVs out in the wild. So make sure if you watch it, take a picture, send it in, or whether it's in the wild at thednvr.com or post on social media, tag us. And we'll be featuring some of those submissions live on the show and picking lucky winners for some free DNVR merchandise. Again, check our channel, Samsung, Xfinity, Xumo. Send us some pictures.
Okay, so it's clear that we can dive into these pretty deep. So I think we need to save Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham for another day because I think that's a big conversation.
I think it's a quick one, but we.
Okay, well, that's what I want to do.
We'll
I want a 2-word answer from each of you,
Yeah.
and then we'll dive into it in a future date. Who's the Broncos' backup quarterback next year? Is it Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham?
We don't know.
Don't know. Okay.
No, we don't know him.
Oh, we don't know him neither. See you guys. Okay.
I'll go Zach.
I think if the Broncos can bring, well, I said 2-word answer. I'll go Zach Wilson for now. We'll have a longer conversation about this because I think this is a good one, especially open up the envelope that Todd dropped there with might be someone we don't know. Let's get to some role players and other starters on this team that I don't think need as long of a conversation. Cody Barton is a free agent. He just signed a 1-year deal. He obviously was a starter for the Broncos this year. Will he be back?
Yes.
I'll go no. I think he's just going to cost more. Like you're not getting him for as cheap as you got him before. So you'd have to really like him. And maybe they do really like him, but also it's him versus the 15 other linebackers who are going to be out there in free agency and the draft, all that sort of stuff. I'd just say the odds say no.
Yeah, from my understanding, the day or before the Saints game, it was a Thursday night game, that was going to be Cody Barton's last time starting for the Broncos. And then what did he do? He went out
crazy.
there, almost had an interception, had tons of tackles, then got the fumble, ran it back in the end zone, and the Broncos were like, well, shoot. we can't bench this guy after that. And then from then on, he played okay. But because the Broncos were so close to benching him, I don't think he's back. But we'll see. I mean, Alex Singleton isn't a free agent, but I don't think he has any more guaranteed money on his deal. I'm not sure what the injury does there. So they have some interesting options there at inside linebacker. I hope they bring Alex back. But I'm not so sure about Cody.
Yeah, I feel like you bring Alex back and the things that they feel like Cody is limited in, he'll have a very limited role. We saw what it looked like when Alex was there and also Cody was a starter as well. Like, Alex is going to take a majority of the snaps. Cody will come in on primarily pass downs, maybe a little bit on the run downs. I think it just makes sense if he's cheap enough.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to bring a new guy in, make him learn the system. He knows both positions. He knows how to play in this defense. He knows what it's like to play behind Zach Allen and JFM. Are there things he needs to clean up? I think absolutely. But ultimately, I think his role will be a lot smaller going into next year than it was this year.
Yeah. It's just hard. I don't know what the Broncos are looking for at inside linebacker right now. Like, I feel like there isn't much of a read because you move on from Josie. So that tells you some things. Like, he's one of the best between the tackles linebackers you're going to find. Like, in terms of the first two downs, there's probably a handful of guys you'd rather have, but I couldn't name them all. You bring in Cody Barton, who is more mobile, more fluid, but at the same time, the run defense just dried up because too often the linebackers either weren't beating blocks or just weren't quite getting their spots in time. Like, I come out of that season saying, I want somebody who's going to make a bunch of those tackles. And maybe just having Alex back covers that piece of it. But with how leaky... with that defensive front, with that front seven as good as it is, it should be one of the best run defenses in the NFL. And it was 80% of the time, but there was that other 20% where things just didn't click. And so I would love to see him go get somebody physical and somebody who can fight in there, and then find, maybe you go, I guess it'd technically be dime a little bit more often on third downs and bring in another safety. But I feel like I don't have a read on what exactly the Broncos are looking for from that spot right now.
It's very fair. Okay, two more starters. Riley Dixon, will they bring back their punter?
Yeah, I thought he had a good year.
Yeah.
Yeah, a much better year this year than last year. So I would say yes as well.
I think they're lucky that, like, his yards per punt is not a good stat for Riley. Mostly, there are a couple of the rough ones, like 38 yarders a couple times that you really hate. But he was just so good. Whenever you got him close to midfield, he'd pin him inside the 5 every single time. And there were a couple, including, I mean, your one stop on defense in that playoff game was because Riley Dixon pinned him at the 1 yard line and they weren't able to score. So yeah. I think you bring him back, and I think that they're helped out by the fact that, like, the numbers, the raw numbers just won't look all that good, which means he won't be all that expensive.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're bringing him back. Like you said, just downing those guys was huge. And then the last one, fullback, Michael Burton. Will he be back, Todd?
Yeah, I don't know any other fullbacks in the league. I couldn't name any free agents that would be.
There are 9 fullbacks in the NFL.
Only 9?
Yep.
Cal Juszczyk is maybe the only one I could name.
Yeah.
Outside of Mike.
Yeah, that's it.
He played in 16% of the offensive snaps, 175 snaps. Is that valuable enough? Is that a big enough role where Sean says, yeah, we need you?
Well, Sean likes fullbacks.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about just, I think he's more of their number one special teams guy.
Played 62% of the special team snaps.
Yeah, and then, he also plays a little bit of offense when we need him.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, might as well bring it, unless he wants the bag, and then they'll say we'll find another fullback. But because there's only 9 fullbacks, I think he'll be back.
Yeah, the competition's between him and Adkins, because Adkins they've played him at tight end, at fullback pretty often, occasionally with Burton on the sideline. So if they wanted to, they could just give Adkins that role, especially if they rebuild that tight ends room. I wouldn't. At the very least, I'd have him compete in training camp. I like the idea of keeping Adkins as, like, your number 2, number 3 tight end. Like, you bring in one guy, you got Troutman, you got Adkins, and you're set there. Because, like, Lucas Kroll, I think you let walk. But that would be the one piece, is whether you think Adkins could do that job, and he's obviously younger and all that stuff.
I don't think they're competing.
No?
I think what Atkins does is special in a way because you think of 2 tight end running game. It's different than a 2 back system.
It is.
And so when you bring in have two tight ends in the game, and all of a sudden he pops back and now he's a fullback. Well, now you kind of keep the defense on their heels, whether it's they have the wrong personnel in or they're not ready for, power running game as opposed to, slashes and outside running game, just different stuff you get with two tight ends. So I think they're a little bit different. I don't think that he's just could be a fullback, in my opinion.
Just remember, Tyler Warren, when the Broncos draft him, he can do it all.
Yeah.
He can be your fullback, he can be your tight end, he can be both tight ends. He can do it all on the field. And I think we found Mike Burton's burner account. Jose says, in all caps, pay Burton. We see you, Mike. Thanks for rocking and rolling with us today.
Yeah, I'd keep both.
Really quick, I need quick answers on these guys, and we can go back over them
Just do them
later. No, because we got a packed show tomorrow. Lil'Jordan Humphrey.
No.
I'd bring him back. I think he's back.
Justin Strnad.
Yes.
I'd love to. Sorry.
Yes, no.
Yes. This had such a long conversation, though.
We have plenty of days to get into this.
So
Trayvon Smith.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No doubt.
Quinn Bailey.
No doubt.
Yes.
I said Quinn Bailey. Zach Cunningham.
He's gone.
I don't know.
Yeah, fair. Inside linebacker. You don't have their backs?
No.
And final one, Matt Pert.
He's gone.
So that kind of tells you, Todd, what do you think? No idea. Fair.
Alex Palshevsky's your third tackle.
That kind of tells you, we talked about.
No shrugs. There was a 2-week stretch where we were saying when McGlinchey's healthy, he should they bench him for Palshevsky. You've got a great third tackle.
We got to wrap this conversation up.
shrugs.
We will dive into Palshevsky and everything else. We can get into these guys more. But I think what this shows you is the Broncos don't have that many upcoming free agents this year, which is probably a good thing there. So thank you all for staying tuned with us today and tomorrow. We're going to be diving into a big show, breaking down everything that happens at today's press conferences. You don't want to miss at 10 a.m. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.